Good.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're joining us from. Today, you're going to join us for a very special masterclass where we will learn more about lessons learned in life. And the interesting thing about all these lessons is you will get caught. So my name is Daniel Tolson, and I've been in business for 38 years. Yes, it's correct that I am only 38 years of age right now. And people ask me, Daniel, how is it possible that you're 38 and you've been in business for 38 years? Well, what you've got to understand is I've grown up in family business. My grandfather owned a transport company, and my mum drove one of the buses, and my dad drove one of the buses. And during work hours, I was conceived on the back seat of the bus. So I can legitimately claim that I've been in business all my life. So thanks for joining us. We're joined by my good friend, Bram, Lagrou. So Bram, thanks for joining us today. Good to see you once again.
Very good to see you as well, Daniel. Appreciate it all. And for everybody joining us here, close by and far, it's great to have you with us. I'm sure that the parents listening, that you know that as Daniel already at the very first second in business, my son is also next door to get in business. So if he comes in and says he's just a very friendly boy, bear with us for a moment.
Well, you're going to really enjoy what we got planned for you tonight. For those who are joining me for the first time, my name is Daniel Tolson, and over the past couple of years, I've acquired more than 897 new clients into my coaching and consulting business. These clients have generated more than $100 million worth of new revenues. And it's simply because they're taking good advice. And I've got to be honest with you, there was a time in my life where I didn't take good advice. I was always told to use the bathroom correctly. But Friday the 13th, November 1998, me and my mates, we went down to the local steakhouse called Lone Star Steakhouse. We went into the steakhouse, we ordered some drinks, we had a couple of drinks, and nature called. So as the boys do, just like the girls do, they go to the bathroom together. I went into the first bathroom, my friend went into the third one, and I decided that the toilet didn't look very clean, Bram. So I thought, I'll do a kangaroo squat. Very Australian thing to do a kangaroo squat on the toilet bowl. But as I squatted on the toilet bowl, the bloody thing just snapped in half. It broke into two pieces, and I fell from a squatting position right through the toilet. And as I was falling through the porcelain, it just ripped apart my left bum cheek. So I went into the bathroom with two bum cheeks, and minutes later I had three bum cheeks. I wake up, I'm on the ground, there's blood and guts and everything all over the bathroom.
Calling about floor being flat.
And the thing that I failed to do was to take good advice. So my lesson learned in life was that when you're given good advice, follow it. And myself and Bram are going to give you some great advice so that you can improve your businesses. So if you haven't been turned off by the toilet story and the potty jokes, stick around.
Sit around, yeah. Cheers to that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it was cheers to that one. I was lucky I survived. Caught with my pants down.
Well, I think from you only moved on from there on and upwards. You couldn't be lower than that, Daniel. It's from there that just had a steep ascent.
You know, it only got worse, Bram, was when I walked out and there was about 300 people in the restaurant that night.
Oh my goodness.
So it wasn't good marketing.
So sometimes the challenging experiences, they make us rather than break us and get us ready for the next great thing.
100%. So let's learn about Bram Lagrou. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome Jacqueline. Thanks for joining us. Greg, Bo, Wham, Greg, Diane. Just let us know, can you see us clearly and can you hear us clearly also? And Bram's going to let you know more about him. So over to you, Bram.
Oh, thanks for that, Daniel. Well, look, for those people who've never heard of me before, you might see that I'm an Australian. I'm one of the kangaroo squad, to say that way. But originally from Belgium. In fact, just a second ago, I put my teeth into a nice chocolates. Think about Belgian chocolate, Belgian beer. That's me. But definitely also on a personal side, psychologist by, but fell into business and just couldn't out of it because of it so much. So people love knowing what their ways can tick. In the last 14 years now, yes, 14 years being in business, work with people in 25 countries on the ground, have in Lagrou alone touched about 34,009 people's lives, which I feel very privileged for. And I love having I love making sure that people find proven ways that work for business, but also make sure they can do it in ethical ways that makes them feel comfortable about the noble passion of selling, and also does the right thing by their clients. Because I think it's easy in sales to involve the four-letter word and talking about potty story. Oh, yes, there is such a thing as the SHIT word in sales. A lot of people have a very negative connotation attached to it. In my view, we can be different, we can differentiate ourselves, and we can make a positive difference in the lives of our clients and be of exceptional use to them. So that's what I'm about. In short, look forward to this webinar here, everyone joining. Thanks again.
Well, it's a lovely introduction, and rest assured, ladies and gentlemen, one of the best qualities that I believe that business people need today is to have the quality of being literal. When you get good advice, make sure you take that advice and implement it immediately. One of our friends, personal friends of mine and Bram's, is Brian Tracy. And Brian, not just for the past year, 10 years, 20 years, but for the past 35 and 40 years, he's always been quoted saying, one idea is enough to totally transform your business. One new idea is enough to double your sales and income. And Bram and I, we're going to give you lots of new ideas today. And these are ideas that in our lives, these are the lessons we've learned. So we're going to share these. We're going to be open with you. And what we want from you is that if you're joining us now, just hashtag live, give us a little hashtag live in the feed so we know you're watching. But if you're watching this on the replay, give us a little hashtag replay so we can come back and we can respond to you later on. Now, I'm going to kick off with a lesson learned, Bram, and it's going to be like a game of ping pong tonight. I'm going to share a lesson. I'm going to hit the ball back to you. You're going to share a lesson, etc. We're going to go backwards and forwards. So if you like what you're hearing, make sure you leave a comment in the feed and share your own personal stories. Now, Bram, it was 1997 and I dropped out of school. I dropped out of school because I didn't like school. I didn't like school. And for years, ever since I was in primary school, I was told I had learning difficulties, that I had linear sequential learning disabilities, that my left and my right brain weren't functioning. And they gave me all the tests and they proved to me that I was learning disabled. They said, Daniel, we've done an IQ test. Your IQ comes in at about 131 and you're only using your left hemisphere of your brain. I didn't know what that meant. I just heard that I've got two brains and I'm using one, so I must be stupid. So I kind of was convinced for years that I was stupid and that learning was hard. But as I started to get into personal development, what I learned was that the most successful people continued learning, and they would learn and they would study. And recently I discovered a statistic that the average CEO reads 60 books a year. They read 60 books a year and their income is on average 319 times more than everybody else in their business. Now, I told somebody that recently and they said, oh, where's your evidence? Where's your proof? So I went and did the research myself. I researched Frank Lowery. Now, Frank Lowery is the founder of Westfields. He takes home $26 million per year. The average wage for people working in Westfields is a wage of $89,000. So as a percentage, Frank Lowery earns 30,588% more than the average person. And this fascinated me. Brian Tracy, in his trainings, he says you've got to learn and study 10 hours per week just to stay current. So what I've learned over the years is, Bram, that people come to me and they say, Daniel, I've learned how to sell. I've read a book on selling. But there's a big difference between learning and studying. And over the years, what I've learned is that if you choose a topic that you're passionate about, you will be totally engrossed in all the information. You'll wake up early, you'll read a book. You'll wake up early, you'll listen to an audio program. You won't be able to, you're so passionate about getting home and going to bed so you can engage in this information once again. So you've got to choose things that excite you. Why didn't I like school? I just didn't like what I was learning. I couldn't figure out why the hell am I learning to cut open a frog? I don't want to cut open frogs for the rest of my life. Why am I learning Pythagoras' theorem and pi r squared? I hate maths. No wonder I had learning disabilities. I was trying to learn things that I didn't want to learn. So my biggest learning is this, is that the more knowledge that you acquire in a very specific field, the more valuable you'll become. And inside of 10 years, you can really turn around your life. 10 years ago, I was cabin crew. I was flying around the world getting paid $25 an hour. I have read more than 1,000 books. I have done hundreds of programs. And personally, from a guy who dropped out of school at 17, from earning $25 an hour 10 years ago, I have clients who now hire me at $2,500 per hour just for my advice. And I was able to do that inside of 10 years. No university degree, no formal education, but I committed to studying a specific field. And now it pays off. So find something you like and then immerse yourself into it fully. That's my biggest learning.
Very good. That's a really amazing insight. I noticed there's a link in the indication there. Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you.
Oh, yeah. So great insight indeed. And yeah, far out from 5 to 2,500. Hey? That's different there. So it just goes to show again that you're not just somebody that reads about, actually also apply it and see the difference on the scoreboard. And I think that's really important. Look, Daniel, I think stories that we've had is in a similar way where you always start somewhere. And you see a ladder here behind me. I think nobody starts really at the top unless mommy and dad put you there in a seat that they've actually up for us. That wasn't the case for you, wasn't the case for me. So we both pretty much started up very much at the bottom. And I remember we started working for a Fortune 500 company. The lesson that I've learned from there is that when you walk into a role with an employee's mind that is about, I just put in my time, and each month or every fortnight or week, I cash money. And if I do well in sales, I'll make a few commissions, a very different mindset from the one that I've actually projected myself into by taking up business, by actually hustling for the work, but also taking on the risk. And the story that I want to share with you is the one from the last 8 years. Since I washed upon the shores from Australia, after I fell in love with an Aussie girl. And by the way, we're not together anymore, but we're still good friends. It's all about relationships, isn't it? The interesting experience that I had was from moving from that employee mindset into a business owner mindset, where nobody told me how to manage cash. Nobody did. And so one of the biggest learnings that I've had along the way was cash management. But before I talk that one, I want to actually retract it first and talk about the biggest thing I think that people that may be watching now that are considering walking into business, or those that have already found themselves into business. You, like me, were to start a business and trade your time for money, right? So your most precious assets, your time, compare it to this. There's time budget, there's money, and what we can easily spend $1 and earn it back. You can't spend a minute and earn it back. that one is wasted and gone forever. So time is even more precious than money. We say time is money, but it's not. Time is even more precious than money. The biggest learning that I've had was sitting down here and, you know, having a 6 year, 100% growth per year on year in a row, and then somehow see it go backwards. And then thinking like, how is it possible that it is happening? Having the hard learning lessons along the way. And then saying, you know what? The trading time is because now there's so many great opportunities to find multiple streams of income. And like, for example, real estate agents, they find a way to have sales, which is the cherry on the top. But it's only to the extent that you've got a good property roll, because that is recurring. And so pretty much the first sort of nugget that I wanted to share with people. If you are an advisor, consultant, trainer, a coach, you know, or somebody that just freelances and sells time, money, beware, because it might go up for a while, and then unequally, you will actually also experience the other side unless you prepare it. And that's my first sort of nugget that I want to share with people here tonight.
It's a great nugget, and as you absorb that, let's just head over and answer a couple of questions here, Bram. The first question is from Jacqueline. Now, when we're reading books, is it any type of book? Should it be the same thing? Well, my belief is it has to be everybody else of the same logical type. So, for example, I specialize in emotional intelligence and strategic planning. Everything that I learn is within emotional intelligence and strategic planning. Here's the reality. A mechanic specializes in fixing engines and motor vehicles. If he studied medicine on the side, you'd be crazy to seek medical advice from your local mechanic. So what we need to do is we need to choose one area and we need to specialize on it. And what happens is you have a compounding effect, Jacqueline. The statistic, and this is a stat, and I love success, and I think everybody should be more successful, but you've got to know your numbers. The average person reads less than 4 books a year, and those 4 books have nothing to do with the field that they're in. They read Harry Potter, they read 50 Shades of Grey, and they read a lot of stuff that adds no value to their career or business. So if you just keep reading about something in the field that you're passionate about, you'll have a compounding effect. And if you read 3 books, and this is the statistic, 3 books, if you read 3 books, you will know more about that topic than 95% of the people in the field. And you've only got to read 3 books. So my belief is you just stick to one area. The second question there, and it comes from Greg McDermott. Greg says, do you guys believe that listening to podcasts is learning? I listen a lot on the bike, but I often wonder if it's not effective enough, as I'm splitting my brain energy on both following my training program and trying to absorb the knowledge of others. You know what I think? I may have just answered my own question. Well, the truth is, Greg, audio books are fantastic and podcasts are fantastic, but what happens is you are splitting your attention. The only thing that actually gives you 100% attention is if you actually read the physical book. When you're reading a physical book, it's impossible to drive. As you're reading a physical book, it's impossible to have a conversation. As you're reading a physical book, it's impossible to walk. You can only do one thing. And one of my mentors, he told me that years ago. So clarity, focus, and concentration, read the book and you'll retain it. That's my opinion. What are your thoughts on that, Bram? How would you respond?
Very much with you. I don't believe in multitasking. I like focus. Focus attention means 100% brain capacity goes into one thing. Just think about this here, an analogy. All of us know that if we have a conversation and these things here, if we allow them to buzz, to engage us, or even our computers, if there's these dings and rings and whatever, alerts and reminders and all of that going off, you cannot have a meaningful conversation where the other person feels 100% listened to particularly cared for, and where you pick up on every single thing that they and don't say, because sometimes in the silence that the biggest message is concealed. You can't do it when your brain is scattered across multiple things. So those people that like to believe that multitasking is possible, I personally would say, think again and perhaps practice beyond it and measure it. Because if you measure it, as many scientists have done before, multitasking is flawed for most people. Unless you got some special brain, which most of us not necessarily have. We have got a great, incredible brain, but there's definitely more merit in focus. One book, I think it's great, rather than listening only and while driving around or ironing or whatever you might do. Yes, definitely.
Wonderful. I think that's really good advice. So, Teresa, thanks for joining us. Leanne, Prabin, Sonia and Daniel, great to see you there. Sam Doman, thanks for joining us. You joined myself and Bram at National Sales Conference this year, so good to see you there. Now, the second lesson that I learned in life, Bram, was discipline. And I think discipline is summarized in one of the most incredible quotes that I've ever heard. And it was from Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee said, "I'm not afraid of a man of 10,000 kicks. I'm afraid of a man who's practiced one kick 10,000 times." Now, in 2013 and 2014, I ended up on Social Security. I was down at Centrelink and I was getting government benefits. And what led to that was a lack of discipline. What happened was I was in business. I had started my coaching and consulting business, but I was too busy flicking through Facebook. I was too busy looking at videos on YouTube. And I was too busy thinking about going back to my old job at the airline. Because if I just went back to the old airline, all of my life problems would disappear. And talking about attention, if your attention is not on your business stops growing. But if your attention is on Facebook, Facebook starts to grow. But there's only a couple of good things like this program on Facebook. Everything else is cat videos. So I'd spent a long time being very undisciplined, and I ended up paying the price, and it was a very heavy price. And I paid the price in the shame, in the embarrassment of having to go down and put my hands out and beg for money from the government. And I could have avoided it if I was disciplined. And the biggest learning is that in life, nobody's coming to save you. There is no rich uncle who's going to die and going to leave your will. Your parents are going to live a long life, and like all parents, they should spend all the money and not give it to the kids. And we know that's going to happen because the cost of living is going up. And you've got to be disciplined. You have to be disciplined, and what you have to do is you have to do what's hard in business. It is hard to go and prospect every single day. It is hard to get rejection day in, day out, but it's the only thing that pays the bills. I was at a training not long ago and somebody said, "I don't want to market, I don't want to advertise, I want people to come to me." Well, unfortunately, in this world, it doesn't happen. Even Tony Robbins, who has trained 4 million people around the world, still has to advertise his trainings on the back of a bus. Coca-Cola, McDonald's, everybody still markets. So you've got to accept that there's parts of business that are difficult, and you have to have the discipline. And remember this, nature is neutral. Nature, the universe, God is not out to get you. They're not out here trying to make your life hell. Nature does not say, "Bram, you're going to be successful, and Daniel, we're going to give you a hell of a time this lifetime." Nature's blind. It doesn't see. Everything is distributed evenly. And what you've got to do is you've got to have the discipline to get the job done. If you set a goal, you must have the discipline to start. You must have the discipline to maintain. And then you must have the discipline to complete the project. And you've got to have the discipline not to stop until you get what you want. And I have learned that. And now that I've applied it in my life, my results are much better. And life is actually easier because I've done what is hard.
It's a very good lesson. And You know what? With the discipline, it makes me straight away think, Daniel, that sometimes people, we all know that certain things come easy to us, while other things are hard. You know, what's hard for some people is easy for others, and it's easy for the ones over here, it's hard for the first ones. So I think it's really important that people get a bit clear before they really launch themselves into stuff and take on discipline, that they really get clear about what it is they really truly want in their heart, not in mind. Often I see people, and I've seen this time and time again, even in some of my closest friend circle, that people started to go to university and stick through it, even though they hated it. They had the discipline to stay, but they just somehow then did end up with a degree that they didn't want to do anything with, because it really just bored the stuff out of them, as you know. I told this story earlier, so we can get that same line of thought. But so I think the discipline is definitely an important. I think as soon as people are clear what it is that they want, and they then put in the work, that hard becomes actually easier. If just now again come back to my own story here, the discipline that I've really struggled with was skill management. I started talking about it earlier. It was like, you know, I love certain things. Guess what? I easily spend money on it. The books that you refer to, the learning, I would easily spend, you know, $9 to go and do a course and $10 to go there and hump on a plane and go and work with somebody in the US somewhere and absorb all the costs. Sometimes even when I didn't have the money yet, and just, you know, go credit terms and all that sort of stuff. That's the easy bit. So I'm easily inspired to do it. So that comes easy. Cash management is important too. So I think I want to somehow make like a two-way street on your idea of discipline. It's like, how can you apply the discipline in an area that comes hard to you personally? Like, I'll give you an example. One thing I've learned is by sometimes finding certain things that I didn't want to know, and put some structure around it after some really hard lessons, you know, lessons where I would receive a letter from somebody that I wanted to see, or an ultimatum and other stuff. I've had those, you know, over the last few years, just because I didn't work and I didn't like looking at the sort of tedious things. That's why my personal opinion about it. Now, one that you see is that when you overlook it, it starts you in the palm sooner. Well, it doesn't make you, break you. So for me, it's like turning a blind eye. It started to bang, and it started to hurt business, and it started to hurt my family life. And so the lesson that I've learned is apply some structure and some discipline around something that is natural to you, but that is important enough to pay attention to. One thing, for example, that I did, put a plan in place. Something that you, Daniel, and you work a lot with your clients on how to structure and strategize for success. Put a plan in place, and then have the discipline to do your plan. If you plan for success, you can get it. If you don't at all, well, then obviously we know that just on the other side of it. So anyway, last but not least, another idea about structuring or applying discipline again, areas that are so-called hard for us is, if flow manage one thing, it's about knowing your numbers. You said earlier, putting your numbers in terms of what sort of activities you need to put in, what sort of budget do you need to have joining you with it to achieve certain numbers in terms of goals on the scoreboard. There's a logical equation or a direct correlation between certain things here in terms of phone calls, networking, catching up with clients, making proposals, touching base with clients after, doing the follow through, and all these sort of things in sales that if you do them well and you put in the right numbers, on the other side, you get the wrong numbers too. And so it's direct correlation. If people don't have the discipline there to do what it takes here, then they're just dreamers to try it over here. Obviously, it doesn't work.
100%. 100%. You know, Jack Welch called it the reality principle.
Yes, he did. He also was talking about.
It's one of those things. Now, it's a great point there, and we've just got a couple of things here. Alden, my work ethic comes from working door-to-door sales for a couple of years. I feel like I've worked very hard. However, some of the people I work with don't feel inspired or motivated the way I am. Any thoughts on leadership and motivating a team? Well, Aidan, my belief here is that leadership is about taking action. Leaders take action, followers don't. And a lot of times is people need a very strong leader. And I live by the motto of the When Harry Met Sally model. And if you've ever watched that movie, When Harry Met Sally, she's having an orgasm in the restaurant. And of the When Harry Met Sally model. If you've ever watched that in the life of the people that you work with, and you've got to take such high levels of action, you've got to get such great quality results that they look at you and say, I want what you're having. And Napoleon, one of the greatest generals who ever lived, he said that there's no bad soldiers under a good general. So I believe the first thing that you can do is just take full control of your actions and make sure you're producing results that inspire others. That's my take. How about yourself there, Bram?
Leadership is a big one. I think there's a lot of, let's say, education out there, training programs that are very cerebral, and knowing that also are very connected to the topic of emotional intelligence, Daniel. Leadership for me is sometimes more about the heart than it is the mind. Let me just share it with you. I was once very fortunate to attend shortly after I arrived in Australia, of the events, networking events where they staged some of those guys and girls that already made it. You know, the leaders like your Jack Welch's. This particular panel had the CEO of a bank on stage, and I never heard of it before. And he just how inspired in me that made me think very highly of him. And anytime when I had an opportunity to talk to people who had been working in businesses that he either was the CEO of, was on board of, I always wanted to see what they thought of him. And again, coming back to the point of leadership, every single time the people would talk about him with an air that was one of felt special about this guy or this person. I feel really good. This person remembered my name. You know, I met him or her once, and 6 months later, she would still remember my name. He or she would remember what we spoke about while we were in an elevator for a few seconds only. And he would ask me a question about it. And so I think leadership had an innate ability, or not perhaps innate, it could also develop, but it's one that really fueled by genuine care for people, and then, yes, inspiring them to take action towards something meaningful that is way off them, because you actually have the hard yards yourself and done it together with them. I think that really is one of the front leaders, you know, like your Napoleons, who has got smarts, the tactics, yes, all of that sort of brain stuff. Definitely also touches people on this lower level here. As soon as we do, people will want to go work for you longer hours, put in the extra efforts, sometimes take a pay, a reduction in pay, just because they love you, they want to work with you, they want to help you, they want to support you, and they want to help you succeed. That's, for me, is what true leadership is about.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful take. And there's two types of leadership. There's personal leadership, and that's where all of us need to start. We have to be a very strong leader in our own life, and then we can think about strategic leadership after that. Now, there's another quick comment there from Jacqueline Haley. And Jacqueline, this is a very interesting topic that I'm both passionate about and very opinionated about. I don't tend to be very opinionated. I'm pretty much go with the flow and let everybody have their own model of the world. I'm a big believer of that. But Haley, one of the things that really ruffles my feathers is people who become therapy junkies. And as you know, that I train people in a modality of emotional intelligence called NLP. I also use techniques called timeline therapy to improve people's level of emotional intelligence. What I find, Jacqueline, is people get stuck in therapy because therapy feels so good. To let go of your negative emotions, there's no better feeling in your life. There's no better feeling than to reprogram your mind. But what happens is when we get stuck in therapy, we stop taking action in our business. When we get stuck in therapy, we're constantly asking ourselves the question, why is my business not making money? Why aren't my customers coming here? Why am I depressed? Why am I angry? But the question why has no movement. It just brings you a lot of reasons that you can't do anything with. They're all reasons about the past. And nothing pisses me off more than people who become therapeutic junkies. What I say is go for therapy, get rid of your mental and emotional blockages, and then take a lot of action. Let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, most of us have had a broken bone in their life. I broke my left wrist here. I had a plate and 4 pins put in there. But once the bone was healed, I took off the cast. I took off the cast and went back to work. But some people get stuck in that self-care, and the plaster cast has been on their arm for 5 or 10 years. You've got to learn that there's a time for therapy and there's a time for action. And action should take up 80% of your time. And what happens is when you're taking action, you're not thinking about, poor me, why don't I have what I want? So I'm very opinionated about that. I get very angry about it, but it's the truth. We have to take a lot of action in our business. There is time for self-care, and it's definitely not during work hours. It's always after work hours. So that's my opinion. And I'm open for
That's
anybody.
discipline again coming through. Great one. I love the plaster, Daniel. It shows again that the plaster can become a bit of a comfort zone, and we get so attached to it, and we just don't want to go beyond until we say, you know what, there's something bigger, better, and more meaningful out there, and you know what, let's just throw it off and throw ourselves in the deep end.
100%, Bram, 100%. And I've got my own wacky sense of humour. There's a time and a place to use a condom. But once you use it, you take it off.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, this funny story has really got the future here, Daniel.
There's a time and a place.
You know what? At this point, I'm going to share something with you because, I can relate to this story about the plaster. And you were there when I actually took my plaster off. It was only a few months ago in the Adelaide Entertainment Centre where we had the stage filled with people like Don DeMarti, Champagne, Raby and people as well. One thing that are really, the thing that has kept me small at some stage was me trying to look successful, be always cheerful, part of my personal branding, the big smile, and nothing can harm Bram. He's so resilient and everything is good. Now, of course, that's not the case. We all have our, lows, You've sent a link. I've had times where I just didn't know how to pay the bills. I remember last year, around the same time for the sales conference, I had invested so much money into the event that I'm sure that people that are in business can relate to this, that I felt financially challenged, stretched, and I felt the necessity. Now, this is really an important one because this is coming back to point as well that I'm trying to make. I felt the necessity that I had to make sales during the event. Now, as you and I both know, if you go into a sales meet and salesperson is more hung up with the outcome than the person that is a potential buyer, the salesperson is going to end up with the product or service. And that's exactly what happened. So there I was last year, having filled the room, actually tripled the size of the room with a lot of great people, a lot of people that we've done good business, that we continue doing business with. But I came from a personal leadership perspective, from an emotional state of desperation. Now, desperation business is the best teacher I have found now, looking back, than anything else before, because it taught me humbleness after I was in my promote. I went back to the side of the equation from being on my all-time high, back to the old low, down the ladder behind me, and it taught me humbleness and to again go back into a state of genuine care for others rather than care for my pockets. Now, the lesson I'm trying to make here now is the following. Even though we set up and times that time around sales costs, the way that I went into it was such that people like the way the voice in the room, like I went about making it. It just pretty much gave me the feedback, said, Bram, go about it this way, then keep stuff. But best learning lesson there was then, wow, something went wrong, because even though more people, we actually made less business. Right? So I took that lesson into this year's conference. And you were there, and you were there at the end. Were actually some tears of gratitude this time, because this time I went in with a mindset that was a personal leadership perspective that said, you know what, these people have paid to be here. These people deserve my very best, and that's exactly what I'm going to give them, regardless of what result will be attached to it. So I hustled hard. I did what was hard and necessary, and I earned their trust again. And guess what? We had the best results with half the people from any event that I've ever done in the last 14 years. Now that's the when you genuinely become a customer and you hustle, you look after their interest first for your own, you get rewarded, because the universe is beautifully compiled. It watch that when the right thing matters, karma is right back for you. So that was much the lesson that I wanted to share with people. Go work for your customers, earn their trust, and do it for the sake of that. All the rest takes care of itself.
Absolutely. And it was the National Sales Conference is one of the top sales conferences in the country. And I recommend that everybody have the opportunity to make their way to Adelaide and be at the next one. It'll blow your mind. It will absolutely blow your mind. And segueing into the third story here, Bram, lesson number 3 for me, and I think it's one of the most important things that I've ever learned, is that you have to start to invest in yourself. Now, I was reading a local newspaper in Australia not long ago, and the average home loan in Sydney, Australia, is $600,000. People are willing to sign a death agreement to get a mortgage. You know what a mortgage is? A mortgage is a death agreement. People have forgotten what it is. Mortgage, it's a death agreement for $600,000, and they pay this bloody house off for the rest of their life. But it comes to personal and professional development, and they see a course for $1,000 and they say, boy, that's a lot of money. But they've just signed a death agreement for $600,000. I call bullshit. I absolutely call bullshit on it. The truth that
there's the potty story again.
People have got their priorities wrong. They'll go into debt for $600,000, but they won't take a course for $1,000 where they could double their income in the following 12 months.
Yes.
And they absolutely...
And if it goes well with a buddy, they might double it in 10 years or 7 years. You can double your income with the right course. So what's the best opportunity? To me, it's straightforward.
100%. I did the numbers today, Bram. The average house loan is $600,000, and it'll take you more than 30 years to pay it off. But at the end of the 30 years, your personal value as an individual remained the same as it was 30 years ago because you did no ongoing education. Now, people say, but I'm going to increase my income. Yes, your income will go up roughly by 3% every year. By law, it goes up. But simultaneously, while your pay increases this much, the cost of living goes up 1.5%. So at the end of the day, if your income grows by 3% every year for 10 years, you've got to divide that by 2, and it's only gone up 15% over 10 years. Now, contrast that to personal development. This year, my customers have doubled, tripled, and even increased their personal incomes 5-fold within 12 months. Their investment in their program was as little as $15,000, and they've gone from incomes of $100,000 to $500,000 inside of a year. We've seen companies use professional development for their teams, and they've grown their businesses from $45 million revenues to $90 million revenues in under 5 years. Mm-hmm. So one of my things that I do is that you've got to invest in yourself. And what I believe is that you will actually invest in yourself to the degree to which you believe in yourself. See, people believe in real estate, but they don't believe in their own personal real estate.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting one. And it goes to show that some people put the cart in front of the horse rather than, if you talk to the cart and say, you move up, unless the car's motor off with some intelligence attached to it, probably is not going to go very far, and just going to sit there and watch you, stare at you for the next 30 years if you wanted to. But if you have got the horse that you've trained and the horse is you, that horse will do the hard work required to get the wins on the board. And so, look, Daniel, I'm fully with you. You can tell here, all the books behind me, it just shows you that I value personal education. If I look at it, I've studied 7 years at uni, and obviously I was very happy for my parents to put that money into it. But so that money has paid itself well back. I remember when I went to my first overseas trip to meet Brian Tracy. That was a trip at the time when I started up my business, and I'm talking many years ago. And the trip itself was about $15,000 for a week or so. Now, $15,000 at the time when I had very little money was a lot of money. And I actually had to take personal loans for it to actually pay it off. But I remember that I came back with a complete different perspective, different insight. It's sometimes not knowing what you don't know that is actually of more value than knowing what you do know, especially if then you apply both of them. So I came back that day from the US, from working with Brian, and I remember like making my money back double within the next 6 weeks. So even though I didn't know how to pay for the course and the travel up front, then within 6 weeks I've earned it back because I had found new ways to engage with people that got the wins on the board. And so, yes, investing in yourself is the way. Recently, you mentioned property. I actually took on a property course, paid, and it cost me $5,000. You keep investing in yourself for the things that you value, because the biggest asset is not your property book. It's the person that actually won the money to invest in the property in the first place, and that person is you.
So important. We see it all the time. One of my clients, she joined a program. The fact of just signing up and committing to it, she increased her sales and income by £50,000 per month before she even got to the training. It was a boost that she made, and chose a direction in her life. And this is not common. What you're saying here is I went to San Diego. It cost me $10,000 for a 3-day course. plus my accommodation, plus my flights, plus the loss of business. So I calculated it cost me $20,000 for the week. I walked out of there, I picked up the phone, I called a prospect, and I signed a $25,000 deal as soon as I walked out. And I believe that that one program yielded me about $100,000 worth of sales and income within the first 3 to 4 months of having that knowledge. So you will invest in yourself to the degree to which you like yourself. So
the great question from that perspective, Daniel, is for the people watching this, do they have a plaster that is still wearing, and is it perhaps time to rip it off? That's the first question. The second question then would be, are you worthy to invest in? Do you feel worthy to invest in yourself? And if so, what's the next thing you're going to invest into for yourself to become a more appreciated asset so that you can actually go to the next level?
And the answer is not a new watch. The answer is not a new handbag. And the answer is not the iPhone 11 that's going to come out sometime today. It's none of those, by the way. That's called a shiny object. Bram, it happened to me. A client, I spoke to them. They didn't believe in investing in themselves. And they said $1,000 is a lot. A week later on Facebook, they got a new iPhone, a new iPad, and a new MacBook. What happened 12 months down the track? They're still in the exact same spot that they've been stuck in for 10 years. But they got a new phone and a new MacBook. So make sure you invest in yourself. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's getting close to the top of the hour, and personally, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate that you've joined us here, and I just want to let you know is that the most successful years of your life are waiting for you out there in the future. The highest amount of sales and income that you're ever going to produce is out there in the future. The greatest amounts of happiness, the best relationships that you're going to ever have are waiting for you in the future. And what your job is to do right now is just to take action. Take one idea from what you've learned today, put into action, and watch your life in your business transform. So ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us. Bram, final thoughts for you?
Go and have some fun time now. People have already invested in themselves by watching this. That's great. Go and make it happen now. And if anything we can help, just give us a shot and we'll help you out.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good night. Thanks, Bram. We'll see you in a month from now.
Always a pleasure, Daniel. Look forward to it. Have a good